Hi, I'm Darren Yeats. I'm co-owner of Voxbox Music down in St Stephen Street, Stockbridge.
Hi there, I'm Sandy McLean. I'm the owner of Love Music, independent record store in Glasgow.
Hi, I'm Rose Norton, co-owner of Coda Music up on the Mound. We're a folk music specialist, and in the past 6 months we've also been selling vinyl.
Hi, I'm Tom Robinson. I'm the assistant manager of Fopp in Rose Street.
Hello, I'm Vicki Cole. I run a small record label called Comets and Cartwheels, and I play bass in Randall Sleep.
So I think the probably the first question to start with, and this will get everything rolling. How do you decide what goes into your shop and what to stock? Rose?
You mean when we were approached by local artists?
Yeah, if you're approached by local artists or local labels.
Well, if it's an artist that we don't know of, then we usually ask them if they could just drop a demo into us so that we could have a listen beforehand. I mean, I think because our shop is so specialist on the folk side, it's obviously a waste of time somebody coming in if it's, rap or metal album. But obviously we'd expect the artist to do some homework before they did bring it in. But we usually like to have a listen to the CD first, and then we usually get back to the artist within a couple of days and let them know whether we would stock it, and then we discuss prices.
Come on to the prices in a minute, but with you, Sandy, is this a similar process? Do you want to hear it first? Are there any other things that really influence what you stock?
Well, ideally, you'd like to hear it, but we're not that fussy. I don't see it as my job to censor an artist or a label what they release. If someone has taken enough time to make it and bring it into me, we'll sell it. We sell all kinds of music: rock, jazz, funk, blues, everything, reggae, classical. So we'll pretty much take anything on and give it a shot. And some things you do better with than others.
And are there any things that they have to have, the CDs or the covers? Or even the vinyl, are there any things that are required for you to be able to stock the record?
Not really. We prefer to have barcodes so we can sell it, but we don't really draw the line unless it's like a thin CD in a plastic case or that's a PVC case that someone's taken no time at all to put any attention to. But no, not really. We'll try to sell anything. As I say, it's up to the label to create the demand. We can fulfill the demand, but people have to want to come buy it. So we'll give it a shot.
What about you, Darren? I mean, you're specifically a vinyl shop, but do you also stock CDs by local acts?
Yeah, we've got a small selection of CDs. Generally, as a vinyl shop, we're keen to put out anything that's on vinyl by an Edinburgh band. We'll put it on the shelf without question. Unless it was a death metal or a racist material. We basically put anything on vinyl, generally from any Scottish band, because we're keen to support vinyl as a format. CDs, at the moment, we'll put, again, anything out because we're not overrun just yet with CDs, but I think if we did end up with 100 artists coming in saying, here's our CD, we'd then have to look again because we don't have the space to rack hundreds of local CDs. Again, then we'd be looking at quality, the quality of the how it's packaged. Thin card sleeves are less desirable for us. I mean, on our shelves we've got 12-inch LPs all across the walls, and a CD can just be lost completely, and people just won't see it, or they'll look at it maybe negatively against the vinyl artwork that's up there. Generally, if a release is out on record, we'll stock the CD as well as a matter of course. Yeah, but we're not too. We don't limit local releases. Or Scottish releases, we're quite happy to for us to be used almost as a shop window for a label or Scottish bands that are putting out music.
Tom, I know it's a lot harder to get your music into Fopp or into HMV, which owns Fopp. What are the conditions? What would someone need if they wanted you to stock their release?
Well, they would have to have a distributor because sadly we can't deal with any non-account suppliers, which is sort of local artists. It's something we were able to do before we had our insolvency crisis of earlier on this year. But one of the results of that is that we can no longer deal with local suppliers. We have our set list of suppliers, so sadly that's the only people we can deal with.
And are there exceptions to this? For example, if you're nominated for something like the Scottish Album of the Year award, or you're taking part in a festival, are there any things where exceptions are made?
An exception could be made if there was a strong case for stocking something. I could give an example of, there was actually a film, independent Scottish film from last year. It was actually one of our best-selling local supplier releases, with several reorders for it. And it was quite phenomenal success for us. That, if a similar thing was to occur, that could potentially be one exception like that. But when you refer to the SIA, I think the labels there, or the artists there, managed to get a distribution through one of the recognised distributors, so they were then able to get it into the HMVs and Fopps.
When you sell things by local acts in your shops, and one of the things that I've found that still quite staggering is that certain acts can sell hundreds of records without even having proper distribution. Sandy, have you got any examples of acts that have done particularly well in Love Music?
Yeah, I showed you a couple of months ago some of the master bags, the stock bags of a few titles that we've sold hundreds of. The big one is the Three Blind Wolves album, Ross Clark and the Three Blind Wolves. We've done about 350 of that over the past 3 years. The first Wooden Box with the Fistful of Fivers album, we've done nearly 200. Things like Joe Mango did like 100 copies in the first few weeks, which might not sound a lot, but she's getting £6 a pop from me. So 126 quid was £720. So that nearly paid for the whole pressing on 120 sales. So it's a lot of bands that don't have distribution, basically. There's so many Scottish labels that just don't have British distribution anymore, since the old Fast Forward and the Cartel, Rough Trade Network shut down years ago. So a lot of people flailing around out there, really good music, but without distribution. Or if they have a label like Electric Honey with some great releases, they're going through Shell Shock or Cargo, one of the smaller English companies who just don't treat them with any kind of importance at all. So it's a tough one.
Rose, has there been anything from the more folky or traditional side of things which has done really well in Coda in the past couple of years?
Oh, yeah. One of our best sellers has been Fiddler's Bid, and that's a Shetland band. I don't know if anybody here has heard of Fiddler's Bid. Probably not.
Are they playing in the grass market at the end of the month? Yeah, they are. I put it in my column, so it must be true.
One of their albums we've sold more than 400 of.
Wow, 400. And do they supply you directly?
Yes.
So what happens? Do they just call up and then go, if you run out of the box, do you need another one?
No, we've got all their stock in our stock room anyway, because we have it delivered directly to us because we sell so many of it. But no, we pay artists, when we're selling that amount of CDs, then we pay them every 3 months by bank transfer. Other smaller artists that we're maybe only selling 10 or even 20 of, but those artists are quite pleased with those small sales as well. But we've probably got about 10 to 15 artists that we do sell 300 to 400 CDs of. And most of those sales come from us recommending those CDs to tourists, people that come in the shop wanting to take something genuine home, something that isn't tart and tat. And
there's a lot of that about.
There's a hell of a lot of that about. And it's good when you know that you're going to sell something to somebody and they're going to take it home and play it again, rather than...
Have you ever been really evil and given them something totally shit just because you didn't like them?
No.
Have you ever been tempted to be really evil and give them...
Yes.
Because the thing is, I have to say as well, where Rose has her shop, I'll be standing there and maybe looking through something or having a chat, and then people seem to see it as some kind of tourist information annex, and you get people coming in with upside down maps and stuff and asking where there's a good steakhouse, or if you... I've seen this happen. Yeah,
a long way around sometimes. To sell your album in a record shop, you need to get the staff really behind it, because the way to sell most of them is when people come in the shop and they hear it playing. And if the staff like the CD, then they're going to play it over and over again, and they're going to enjoy recommending it to customers. And that's how we sell most of artists like Fiddler's Bid, because we've got it playing in the shop. We've got 10, 15 tourists in the shop at the time, and half of them will come up and ask what it is, because it's exactly what they want to take home.
I thoroughly echo that. Whenever we have a handful of artists that whenever we put it on, like the Stanley Odd album, earlier in the year, we put that on it. Guarantee every time it played, someone would buy it. And there's one of the reasons we sold 353 Blind Wolves albums is because we played in the shop a lot, and we do get a lot of tourists. And a lot of people come into Glasgow, home of indie rock, and want to take stuff home, and they can take, for £30, they can take away 3 or 4 really good albums.
What's a sale of one album selling for 300 or 400? I mean, is that a kind of average sale for an act going through Fopp, or is that quite high for you as well?
Well, that sounds pretty high, actually, and all credit to Rose and Sandy for selling stuff through like that, because obviously there's no avenue through Fopp for stuff like that at the moment. And it's great that the bands are achieving those sales and getting the recognition.
I think it's good to get that context, that's a lot through any shop, and it's, if you're doing 10, it's not a bad thing to do 10 CD sales at a gig. So to get that, if you'd have to do at least 30 gigs. Have you had any particular successes through, or any releases that have done particularly well through record shops getting behind them, Vicki?
There's kind of one going on just now, actually. We're releasing an album by a band called There Will Be Fireworks. It's their sophomore album, which is coming out it's coming out in about 2 weeks, in November 24th. And we found that through Avalanche particularly, we're getting quite a lot of pre-orders there, and it's been really successful. Another one earlier in the year was Quick Beam, which we found sold really well through kind of various shops throughout Scotland and down in England as well. It's been a real kind of asset having different outlets available through which people can actually go and buy the music.
And how do you set that up? I mean, I know that Quick Beam within the band, there was someone that was quite active in contacting shops, but is there a kind of plan of action that you can recommend?
To be honest, for us as a label, it all just comes back to the record itself. If it's not a good piece of music, you're not going to convince a shop owner to sell it. I don't know if you guys agree, but I think it has to be a really good record.
Obviously, the record has to be good, but I know lots of great records that hardly anyone buys. So I'm quite, interested. You gotta, if you have an amazing album like Quick Beam's, what would you advise? I mean, when should people start contacting shops? Should they be giving shops promo copies? At which point do you start providing posters or artwork?
I would tend to almost treat a shop as another area for actually promoting the album, almost like you would in the same way you contact a newspaper or a blog or anything. So I think ideally, as soon as the record's available, you want to be sending it out with a press release and just as much information as possible. Asking for an in-store the week before the album actually comes out is probably not going to cut it. You just want to get the music out there as soon as you possibly can.
And what would that be then? 3 months, or should it be
Our
longer?
press lead up tends to be about 4 months, and then just as soon as we have the record pressed, we would try and get it out to shops and radio stations, and tends to be about 3 months in advance, I would say.
Have there been any things that you've done which record shops have particularly liked? I mean, do you find that there's certain approaches that work really well?
I think the main thing is just being organised, like making sure that you've registered with PPL and PRS, and you've got ISRC codes, and you've got a barcode and a catalogue number, all that kind of thing. Just trying to kind of behave in the same way a larger label would if they were operating through a distributor, I suppose.
And do you get asked for certain things by the shops? Do they ask you for posters or?
Just try and let as many people as possible know about it, I suppose. Just so people turn up and they see you play, and then they can relate that back to the product that's available. And I also think it's really important that artists support local shops. I mean, it's all very well kind of sitting here and saying, oh, you should stock my record and you should promote me, but I think it's important that we give back to local business as well and make people aware of the product that is available in their own country. I think it's really important.
What do you like, Sandy? I mean, if someone comes into your shop, are there particular things that make you more inclined to offer them an in-store? Do you tend to ask people if they want an in-store? Is it something that you wait for them to suggest?
Well, it depends if I like it or not, really. And I must say congratulations to the Comets and Cartwheels label, because the Quick Beam campaign was easily the best Scottish indie campaign the past couple of years. It really made us feel included and kind of in the loop, because we got upfront copy of the album and we got links to the videos, which were terrific. And we did feel included in the whole kind of groundswell of it.
So can you give us a bit of an idea of what was so good about the campaign? What were the various steps that they took? And have you got a rough idea of the timeline with it?
Well, it's probably about a between 2 and 3 month build-up, and a lot of it was the personal touch with Paul from Comets getting in touch with a succession of emails just telling us what was happening. If it's good, if you get the promo and it's really good, then you offer the in-store.
We were just a little bit out of the loop, though, despite the build-up, and we've done 2 record store days now, and we didn't get any of the Quick Beam build-up, and it actually caught us completely by surprise. We didn't know the record was coming out. The first time we actually heard about it was reading Avalanche's blog about the Quick Beam, this great new Scottish band. That actually made us reluctant to seek out the label, thinking, have we been ignored for a reason? And
Sorry.
are they an Avalanche band? We don't want to tread on Avalanche's toes. We know we're new. And with Avalanche, with their struggle, the threat to close and things, so we thought, we don't want to poach a great success, and obviously they sold lots of Quick Beam albums off the back of the campaign. We didn't want to muscle in, jumping on the bandwagon, so to speak. But
do you find though that you get in touch with him? He'd like to sell some, especially if you've got them on vinyl. This is actually quite interesting. How much do you talk to each other? I mean, obviously, I see the various blog things and what have you. But I mean, in terms of you as retailers, do you tip each other off about stuff that you've heard or that you're excited about?
We don't talk to each other.
Every man for himself.
Wow. No date and time. I've got 4 of them on a stage.
Yeah.
No, I mean, we keep in touch with Sandy, and Kevin from Avalanche pops into the shop quite often as well, and sometimes we exchange things that are selling. He's even supplied us with a few CDs in the past. But
the most useful thing that I've thought, just having the shop for 2.5 years, is that it would be useful to have one place to go to get Scottish releases, rather than having to find the labels or find the individuals that are releasing records. It'd be good to have just one umbrella company, the organisation that was talked about before.
And I mean, Rose, you said that you'd started distributing things. Are you distributing Fopp, by the way?
Are we distributing?
Are you distributing to Fopp and HMV?
Well, Fopp order through Proper Distribution, which is the company that we use.
So you've.
So if it was part of our umbrella, if you
you're
like,
a
if it's an
bolt-on,
artist,
as they call it.
then Fopp could order it from Proper. Yes, that's a way of supplying to them. Yeah.
Okay, but at the moment you're not taking on any new acts with a distribution, but that could change presumably.
We hope it will change within the next 2 to 3 months. Yeah.
Yes. But just having a distributor doesn't guarantee that shop's going to pick up that you exist. When we get the email from a distributor, you're looking through often 6,000 different items. It's hard work to do. So I mean, there's nothing better than, I think, a direct approach to the shop. Just to let, you can't just assume that that a shop knows that your album's coming out.
So here's the thing, just so that Tom doesn't feel excluded. What I do is in 3 months approach Rose. She might distribute your record. He'll take it and then go in and say hello and say, look, there's thousands of things here, but this one's mine and you'll like it. He's got good taste, I know. So I think that's one of the things that people should be aware of as well, because these days everyone's like, oh, just do it digitally and you don't need to do anything physical. digital is obviously very useful, and it's great if you're wanting to sell people around the world or where there aren't record shops. But where you do have record shops, I think the point's really worth making. And hopefully you're already getting the message that it's worth doing a physical release as well, and actually getting the music into the bricks and mortar retailers. Now, are there any things which, from, I guess, a physical perspective, make it difficult for you to stock? I mean, do you ever get people coming in with weird packaging? Or, I mean, you two have both got quite sort of uniform spaces.
We'd prefer weird packaging.
Do you?
Just something to set a record apart.
What's the weirdest packaging you've had?
We were not getting enough weird packaging.
Right. Get him some weird packaging. Your release is guaranteed. What's it like with Coda? I mean, do you find that you're happy to have weird packaging?
Yeah, I mean, we don't mind how it's packaged, but sometimes it does get lost on the shelves. One that we took in a couple of weeks ago is in like a nice cloth packet, and it's sitting on the shelf with some 7 inches and a few other CDs.
When someone just starts wiping the window with it.
It just looks a bit lost, but I mean, package it how you like. It doesn't
Yeah, I
matter.
suppose the Jerry Loves Records guys often package their vinyl and their wee singles, and there's one that's sealed almost like stamps or something, and also in a cloth bag with a wee safety pin holding it in. It makes you just not want to open it.
One thing I would say though is that if you're bringing something out just on vinyl, then it's a good idea to actually burn that onto just a demo CD so that shops like ourselves can actually play it in the shop.
So I think Rose has a point. A lot of records come sealed, and there's a debate whether breaking the seal and giving yourself a paper cut is worth it, because you could devalue the records. Some of the new records that are coming out are in. It's a geeky point, but they're in quite rough paper sleeves rather than nice polyline, smooth inner sleeves. So when you take the record out, it can scuff it. And if you do that a few times to listen to something, you can end up having a record that's devalued, certainly.
I mean, I have to say, going back to back to the days of vinyl, when everything was vinyl or cassette, I would be put off buying a record that had already been played unless it was a promo. But is that something that puts your customers off at all, or are people pretty relaxed about it?
No, I think you're right. People would want the sealed copy. On the other hand, for some other new records, from the Stones, they're quite happy to, if we take it out of the sealed cellophane and put it in one of our PVC sleeves, then so it looks more like a traditional old record. They're actually more likely to buy it. It's an odd one.
And do you feel that people, when they are buying vinyl, want a download code to go with it? Is that something, a download code, or actually a CD? I mean, I bought a Django remix album, but I bought it at your shop, I think, and I was really chuffed because it looks beautiful, but it had 2 CDs with it, so I could bung them on and.
Yeah, I think when a record comes with a CD, some people are more likely just to play the CD to keep the record in good nick. I mean, you have the debate about the sound quality of vinyl versus CD. I'm not so sure that new releases the sound quality is that much different. They're all made in factories in Europe, in the Czech Republic, which wasn't really renowned for the quality of its vinyl pressing of the vinyl that was coming out. The best pressings are traditionally the UK pressings. But the old Decca plants and the Parlophone plants and the Polydor plants have all long since closed. So it's not really a quality issue, I suppose, these days. Interestingly, people will buy cassettes. The cassette store day has just passed. Often people don't have even a tape player to play the cassettes on. They'll use the download code and keep the cassette as a piece of memorabilia. I think some bands could actually sell blank cassettes with a download code, and no one would be the wiser.
We have shitloads of cassettes. Yeah, we just had Cassette Store Day, September 7th this year.
But did you sell a lot of them?
Yeah, we sold pretty much 90% of them, really. Yeah, and by putting them on the shelf, it attracted a lot of my customers bringing in, giving me bags and bags and bags of cassettes for free that had been sitting around cluttering up their their attics or closets, whatever. But it's bizarre. You get the Nirvana Nevermind cassette out, type in the barcode, and all of a sudden it's worth 20 quid on Amazon. It's like, oh, right. So we did that with quite a few things. You'd be surprised, because a lot of cassettes are worth around a $5. We've been selling them forever for $1.99, 3 for a $5. But all of a sudden, like a Metal Machine Music, 15 quid, thank you. Things like that. So.
Are there any other things that you see that people are doing more of? I mean, obviously, the cassettes are a thing that I've seen cropping up more and more. But do you see any interesting packaging ideas or combining things or promotional activity even? Sandy?
The packaging, as Darren said, the packaging is so important. People do treat it as an artifact rather than go home and play it. It surprised me. Everyone said, "Where's the download code?" I will play the download, and I'll just keep this and never play it. So,
do you ever get things like T-shirts or weird stuff that comes with a download code? Is that something that's
coffee
happening?
cups. There's a Randolph Sleep coffee cup with a download code.
How many have you sold?
Half a dozen or so, maybe 5.
How's that working out for you? I mean, you're doing this with quite a lot of stuff, sticking a code on and selling something that...
I think we're just really tacky, to be honest.
Coasters?
I think if you said that to Adam, he'd probably put the order in tonight. So, we've had quite a lot of success with cassettes, though. We've got 2 or 3 releases on them, and they tend to be quite popular at shows, which surprised me, because I didn't think anyone really had the means to play them anymore, but...
I've got 2 cassette players, so if anyone wants to buy one, 20 quid. Tom,
I'll have one.
Have you had any, do you get this? I mean, I see you selling a lot of T-shirts now. I guess there's always been unusual packaging through Fopp. Do you see that there's a trend in getting stuff that comes with a download code?
Well, we don't get any download codes with our T-shirts, but certainly with the vinyl, it seems to be that's the way ahead for vinyl. Don't know if this mic's working properly, but almost everything has a download code. The record companies seem to be getting the pricing a little bit more realistic now as well, though 26 quid for Arcade Fire.
Actually, that Arcade Fire, this is a good point. Artists selling stock themselves on their own websites, which is great. I think all indie artists should be doing that to help them recoup the money for actually making the album. But artists like Arcade Fire are doing it themselves now. They sold their new album on their own website, pre-orders. It was a double vinyl, and if you pre-ordered it, it was £12.88. For shops to buy it from the record company, it was £16.80. Which meant that we had to sell it for £25, £26. Now, we're not going to sell any of it. Sitting on our racks for £26 when you can still go on to Arcade Fire's own website and get it for £12.88.
Do you actually stock it?
Yeah.
Why do you bother?
Well, we didn't know. Well, I mean, we ordered it.
It's a number 1
and
album.
We didn't know. Yeah, we didn't know that Arcade Fire was selling it at that price until we'd actually ordered it.
Amazon, we're doing the CD for £10, and the cost price is more than £10 plus VAT.
So Arcade Fire are even undercutting their own record company. Yeah, but it's not funny, because where does the record industry go from there? You know? So a major artist like Arcade Fire, brand new album, they're trying to do without their own record company.
And they also gave you early entry to tickets if you ordered the album from them.
Yeah, you were able to apply for tickets early as well.
I mean, I think this is an interesting point, because there were record shops already several years ago in the States pulling Bowie's back catalogue or Beatles' back catalogue if stuff was being released exclusively through Starbucks or through certain chains in the one week. I mean, where do you draw the line as retailers? Have you ever actually said, right, we're not stocking something because you've pissed us off?
My Belated Valentine new album.
And what pissed you off?
Well, they're not going through a distributor. It's like they would only speak to me if I bought 50. I can't afford to buy. I wouldn't sell 50. But they went down to Rough Trade and sold some to their mates at Rough Trade and to Sister Ray and a few other places around. But then they moan about not being considered for the Mercury, but they don't have distribution. So basically, I just think, fuck them.
harsh but fair.
I got to look out for my business, so they're looking out for themselves. That's fine. That's fine, great. But at the same time, why should I help them? We were at a meeting last week with about Record Store Day, and we found out that a lot of English labels weren't giving HMV preferential terms. So I asked the person from the record company, from the distributor, who are those labels? I would like to support them.
And did they tell you?
The next day they did. They gave me an email and said this, this, and this. It was not the big players, unfortunately. All the big players like Rough Trade, Domino, and Beggar's Banquet, and XL, and all these ones, they're bending over backwards for HMV. They're giving them the stuff totally on consignment. Order as much as you want.
And the sad thing about that is that Rough Trade want to pretend that they're indie, and they are definitely not indie. They're as big a player as Universal or EMI or Sony.
So what's happening now is that HMV are creaming off a whole pressing, like the Clash sound system boombox thing. We got a little nibble at some. I tried to order more before it came out. Sorry, they've all been taken away by HMV and Amazon. So there's no risk. HMV don't have a risk. They can just say, well, give me 5,000, and they arrive. They don't have to pay a penny for them until they're sold through the till. Then they've got 60 days to pay for them. After that point, they're sold. So it's a dream scenario for HMV. And shit for it's not a level playing field. It's shit for us.
Do you think that'll carry on? I mean, do you think that it's something that will eventually even itself out?
Well, I'm not really sure. I mean, we do have... There's some stuff we get in consignment. There's some stuff that we have to have in firm sale. What we get consignment firm sale, I have no idea, unfortunately. I'd have to have a computer screen sitting in front of me to quote things. But whilst the HMV, and I don't work in an HMV store or work in a Fopp store, but as a part of group, if they are sort of taking a lion's share of Clash things, like most things, I'm sure that that's probably diluted through the chain. I think we had one. A
lot of emerging releases, they won't get into Fopp or HMV unless they're distributed, and that you're actually stocking those. I mean, how much of your business comes from emerging talent, or Fiddler's Bid, or those kind of good selling Scottish acts?
A huge amount of our business comes from it, and also customer loyalty, because people come into us and they ask for recommendations. We recommend something. I keep going back to Fiddler's Bid because that's just a good example. So they buy it, they enjoy it, they're then on our mailing list. These people live in New York, Tasmania, they're all over the world. And then they buy other things that we recommend to them. And we get to know these customers and we know the type of things they like. It's a huge part of our business, yeah.
We're going to have a little interval for 15 minutes. I've got bits of paper there and hopefully one or two pens. If you've got a question that you want us to ask, write it down there and then just leave it on the bar, and I'll pick it up and we'll weave that into the second half. By the way, could I just say that we got, and it's not just because they gave us a couple of crates, but they have got Brewdog at the bar. So if you want to drink something that's not cooking lager, then there's a choice of Brewdog in bottles. Decision to stock an album, do you take any social media presence into account? And I would go further. I mean, do you take things like gigs or other factors like a decent website or good press into account? Just start with you, Rose.
No, not at all. There you go.
Sandy?
Yes, I do. I always keep my eyes and ears open and subscribe to shitloads of blogs and Facebook pages and that kind of thing, and see what the profile is in Glasgow. And there's so much going on in Glasgow. If I see something interesting, I will just put a wee request on somebody's page saying, please bring it in. In the old days, labels and bands were falling over themselves to bring stuff to shops. Now things have changed so much that we have to ask them. It's bizarre how it's changed.
And how do you find the response? Do you find that a lot of people are pretty slack when it comes to getting back to you or popping into the shop with something for you to sell?
Yes, a lot of them are. Probably the majority of them are slack. Musicians. Two words of music business, one of them is business. So that's why you need a manager or a good label, or just someone a bit more articulate, because that's not the musician's job really to worry about the barcode and things like that as well. It's part of a team, I guess.
Darren, how much difference does it make to you? Do you find that it's handy if someone's got a load of Facebook likes and can recommend going to buy the record in your shop?
Yes, it's preferable. Obviously, you'd like something in return, and if the band has a website or Facebook page, it's just courteous, I think, to say where you can actually buy the physical release. Got no objection to selling your own item online, but it's nice to just have a wee kind of wink and a nudge towards the shops that stock your product. I think that's important. As to the amount of followers that you have, that's not too important. Although we always ask that if you have a gig in town, then to let us know so that we can put something up on our Facebook page to say that, oh, this gig's happening later on this week. And we did that with bands like Randolph Sleep, who were playing here a few months ago, and we were happy to do that. And they've become a favourite band. If bands could give me free tickets to get into things, that helps as well. Just to be put on the odd guest list would get me and my other half along, and we'll come in and see a band live. And often it takes a live experience to really get what a band's about. I mean, there's a real infectious enthusiasm with Randall Sleep that maybe you wouldn't know just from hearing the record just once. Which some CDs that are brought to the shop you might just listen to once, and if you're not listening to it in context of a live performance, you might not get the full amount out of it, or you might not give it that second listen that's so important.
Do you within Fopp, if a release is coming out, do you get information if there's been a good review in the List or in the Scotsman or within the Scottish media that there is a media story, or if it's been picked up for radio play or anything like that?
Well, that's the sort of stuff we find out for ourselves at local level. As far as the record companies are concerned, they have to present to our central buying team, which is based in London. There's two guys that look after audio and one guy that looks after visual. And they take into account the whole package. So you're talking about PR, press, a previous track record of sales, etc., what the profile's like at the moment, whether they're touring or not. And they take that all into consideration before they decide, what product they're going to stock.
Vicki, from your perspective, you drew a parallel between approaching retailers and doing PR and press. Do you find that there's particular things that are useful and valuable when you're dealing with shops, be it from your Comets and Cartwheels or from your own perspective as an artist?
I think the most important thing is just to build a relationship, and kind of days like this, to be honest, are really good because I've gotten to meet all these people, and I'll probably try and go out of my way now to kind of form a bit of a relationship with them with regards to the label and as an artist as well. I think you've just got to try and get people on side, and I think if you can recommend them something or give them a product that sells well or that they like for their own personal taste, then you're more likely to kind of keep that relationship going in the future as well.
Now, I mentioned earlier on that I saw you doing an in-store in Avalanche. What's been your experience with doing in-stores, and how easy is it to get them?
It's an interesting one, actually. We were just speaking in the break about the fact that we've actually had 3 of our Comets artists doing in-stores in HMV down on Argyle Street, which I thought was quite surprising, actually, that we approached them and they were willing to let us put a local artist on in the store. That was really great for us. And obviously we don't have the stock available in those stores, so we had to bring it down and sell it at the time, and it was quite a successful day for us, so that was really great. On the flip side, as an artist, actually playing an in-store, I've only ever really done it at Avalanche. It's not something we've done a lot of, so it was a good experience. We got a good crowd, nice atmosphere.
Did you sell a lot of CDs?
Not that day, actually, no. Not that I was aware of. I know that another one of our artists, Fake Major, actually went and played 3 different in-stores in one day during Record Store Day this year. So they did, I think it was Avalanche, Love Music and Groucho's up in Dundee. So they did a kind of record shop tour all in one day, and Paul drove them round. And for us, that was a really great kind of press story, and it was something we could kind of take to the bloggers and kind of smaller journalists and say, look, this is something really interesting that they've done. They've been trying to support Record Shop Day, and it was a really good experience.
Are there any things that you 3 respectively like about in-stores? Are there any things that make you more inclined to do in-store? Rose, you have quite a lot. Is it just about someone approaching you and you liking their music?
I was speaking to Sandy about this just now, and how.
And you guys have been preempting everything in advance of the second half. Yeah.
We were saying that even when you've arranged an in-store and it's for an artist that is very popular within your shop, and you know they've got a new CD out, it doesn't guarantee a big audience. We did one a while back for a fiddler called Duncan Chisholm, who's one of our best sellers. And as far as we were concerned, it was well publicised. And he arrived at the shop. There was nobody in the shop apart from the 4 staff. And 2 minutes before he went onto our stage, there were still only 2 people in the shop. But within 5 minutes, the shop got packed. But it's quite stressful, even from our point of view, putting on an in-store, because you just don't know how many people are going to turn up. If a local artist wants to come along and do an in-store with us, please just phone us and ask. It's depends which time of the week as well. It's obviously really good to do it on a Saturday afternoon. But on the other hand as well, that can also harm the shop sales. Do you find that as well, Sandy?
It can do, it definitely.
Because, I mean, you want to do the in-store when there's going to be a lot of passing trade to help the artist, but you also don't want to harm your sales for that day either. And when you're doing an in-store, you don't really sell any other CDs. People either can't get in the shop, or they're put off coming into the shop because they can see something happening and they think they're not invited to it. Also, it's the number of CDs you're going to sell. Last week we did one for an artist that we'd never heard of before, and we sold 15 EPs, which we thought was really good. Another time you might just sell 2, you know.
Sandy,
it's really unpredictable.
Is there anything that you do differently? I mean, how do you select the acts that you have doing in stores? Is it usually folk just coming up to you and asking?
Well, it's a combination of liking what I hear in the CD, but at the moment we're getting so many bands phoning us up and saying, can we play? Just last week, Sid Griffin from the Long Riders phoned up and said, I'm playing my band, the Cole Porters, are in Glasgow on Saturday. Can we come along and play for half an hour in your shop? Like, yeah, right then, no problem. And this week we had a guy called Pete McLeod, a Glaswegian who's signed to Alan McGee's new label. And he got in touch about a month ago saying my album's coming out that day. I'd really like to play somewhere in Glasgow. And he's on McGee's new label through Cherry Red. 10 people turned up. We hammered it on social media. It was on the radio and everything. 10 people turned up. And he knew the names of most of them. So you can't tell. But like Rachel Sermani last week, it was packed. And we sold about 30 or 40 CDs.
And are there any things that people can do that are particularly useful? I mean, obviously the obvious, that letting their friends on social media know and putting something on the website.
It is boiling down to a lot of times to your friends and your family. Especially in Glasgow, there's always like Ma, Pa and the Waynes come along. And we had Glas Vegas, and we had like the mum, the cousin, the nephew, it was the Glas Vegas family all around the front.
You do in-stores, but you also use pubs in the same street, don't you, Darren?
Yeah, that's been mainly for Record Store Day, when we've not had the space in the shop. We're just a tiny wee shop, so opening it up and having it in pubs. We've tried actually doing Sunday sessions after we close at 4 o'clock on a Sunday, and we had the same problem in getting people in, despite having 1,000 followers on Facebook and Twitter, and you can plug it all you like for 2 weeks in advance, and then sometimes you can struggle to get a crowd of 10, 20 people, and 4 people in our shop feels crowded, but it is quite difficult to get a lot of people in. We actually considered then to use the pubs down the street to have the gigs, because then you have the inbuilt audience of people that are just there. They're there to have a pint and they would appreciate the extra entertainment. There are people that would be smoking outside some of the other pubs across the street. That you see them craning their neck at what's going on across the road. They can hear the music coming out, but it's only until the day after that they actually come across and say, "Oh, what was going on in your shop? If I'd known about it, I would have come in." So I don't think the bands that want to be sold in shops want to be pub bands, though. That's the dichotomy that we have, or the almost
Is it a gig or is it a record launch? Are you trying to get people to buy the album or just come and see a live band?
Yeah. I was so worried actually about being able to pull in a crowd to make it worth the artist's time. Let me see. I lost my train of thought, Olaf.
We're getting so many people phoning up, so many acts phoning up all the time, just treating our shop like a gig. And I have to remind people, well, no, it's kind of a launch. It's an in-store to plug your new record. You want to play Record Store Day? Well, you realise you have to have a record out that day. Oh, do you? Really? Our record's out in January. Can we still play with that one? No.
Yeah. I've regained my train of thought.
I thought that would jog your memory.
We actually hoped to do it as a Sunday session that we'd film you. So it's not about the crowd. It's just about coming in. We film you performing in front of a small crowd. Could just be me. I'll ask you a few questions, and then we'll post it on our website, and we'll create a YouTube channel, Voxbox Music Box, on YouTube, and just try to have a link for people who come to our website, who maybe from abroad and just looking for record shops in Scotland, might come across us and then come across the band to help promote the band there. So although we won't get a crowd of 10 people in the shop, you might find a crowd of 30 people in Chile. We've got a big following in Chile apparently. So.
We had The View in a year or so ago, and some punter had their iPhone 4 or whatever, 5, and he had his own Justin TV channel. So he basically broadcast the gig live.
Wow, from his iPhone?
Yeah. And we went to look at it. We went to look at our computer, and the guy said, "No, you're messing up the broadband, the bandwidth, whatever. Don't do that. Other people can't see it. Just watch there. Just watch the band."
I mean, you mentioned these common mistakes. I mean, are there any things that crop up time and time again that you would just say, here are 3 things you should definitely not do or keep in mind when approaching?
You've got to introduce the band, basically. You've got to introduce yourself, have some kind of repartee with the audience, whatever, and plug the record. That's it. Just introduce yourself, plug the record, and say, we'll be signing it at the end, at the back.
But I mean also with the fact that you've got people releasing something in January and then approaching you for Record Store Day the day before. I mean, are these the most common mistakes, or are there other things that crop up a lot?
Well, I guess the biggest mistake is just not giving yourself enough time to plug things properly. Because everyone's so keen, especially indie labels and new people are so keen to get it out there that you just don't allow enough time to promote it properly.
Are there any other sort of things that really occur to you where people make mistakes or that crop up, other than leaving it far too late to get in touch, or not responding to your calls when you want to order something?
The biggest question I have with local artists is, how much do you want to sell your CD for? And 80% of the time they'll come back and they'll say, I don't know. How much do you think? Well, it's not our CDs, it's your CD. And, how much do you think you want for that CD? It's not up to us to tell you how much you should sell your CD for. You can maybe ask advice, but, have some idea yourself.
What is your advice?
If it's a full-length CD?
Yeah, by emerging artists, maybe self-released.
We would probably suggest $9.99, though sometimes we go for $12.99. Yeah.
I have to go a bit lower for a new band. I recommend $7.99 or $8.99 because at a tenner you're competing with the big boys, McCartney's, of this world. So £2 difference does make a difference, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Yeah.
What would be a kind of regular price for a 7-inch or a 12-inch vinyl?
7-inch singles, they're expensive to make. They cost about £3 each to make in a small run. It's difficult to sell a 7-inch single for £5-6, and so if you're putting out a 7-inch single, I think you need to be realistic that you're doing it for the love of having a 7-inch single out there, rather than to make a fortune, because you're not going to make a lot of money selling 7-inch singles, and you might well be left with 1 or 2 boxes under your bed later on.
So I guess the next question is really how much someone's selling something for £10 in your shop for £8 in your shop. How much would you charge for a CD or for a new band?
We're flexible about it. I mean, the CDs, although the bands themselves on the website might be charging £10, we'd be pricing it at £8, but not broadcasting that we're pricing it at £8, and then we'd go down all the way to cost price if someone was keen to buy it but was humming and haying.
And how much of that do you take? What's your cut?
We usually do a markup of about 15%.
15%? What about you, Sandy?
We basically just treat it like any other release. We treat 25%.
25%.
So if you're selling it at a tenner, if we're selling it at a tenner, we give the government 20% of that tenner and give the artist stroke label £6. So £6 equals a tenner, £5 equals £7.99, £3 equals £4.99.
Do you just make it up depending on the...
Yeah, we're really fluid and loose about it. I mean, we're happy that the band get the money that they were expecting us to get from us, selling it at full price. We're not too bothered about making a profit on the self-release things. Items through a label we're a bit more canny about, but I think if it's someone that's come in, had a nice chat to us, we've befriended many of our customers, and so we're happy to be able to try and push the sales of it. I mean, it's not things that are going to sell in tens and twenties of numbers. It's things that we might have 3 or 4 copies of. So it's not, if we're making £1 or £2 a time, we'd much rather sell it than make that £10.
What would you say would be what would you recommend selling something for? What's been your experience through the label?
Well, we have an online store as well, and we tend to try and sell albums at 10, and we'll sell singles at 1, but that's completely digital. We don't actually do physical singles, obviously. But when we're dealing with stores, I mean, to be honest, it's Paul that deals with it more than I do. I think he just tries to negotiate store to store to find out what their cost price is and what we can have it marked up to.
What's the typical markup in a Fopp store?
Couldn't tell you. Not because I can't tell you, but because I actually
do not
know. Our pricing structure when new releases come in is that we aim to have an album around the £10 mark, and then you might have noticed we started to do some multi-buy things lately, like the 2 for 15 campaign, which has just restarted again. A lot of that stuff is £8. And usually when we have new releases, after a period of time we try and extend the life of that release by getting a deal where we can actually reduce the price so that they're going into sort of the £8, £7, sometimes in the £5 bracket.
In terms of the payment, obviously I think it's quite good to start talking about this, and it's kind of woven very nicely into it. What are typical payment terms if you've sold, say you sell 50 albums, at which point do you, from the person invoicing you, do you actually pay, or do you have a quarterly payment system where you do a stock take?
With the larger artists that we sell, then we do a bank transfer every 3 months for the quantities. But the smaller artists, we usually pay as we go along. So if they've left us 6 CDs and then we're down to 1, or we've sold out and then we reorder it, when they drop in the next batch, then we usually pay them for the ones that we've previously sold.
What about you, Sandy?
That's basically the way we do it as well. It's when you need more. It's like the old-fashioned distribution way. The only way you get paid is when the person wants more of your stock. So if we sell 20 of something, then we phone up the band or the label and say, can we have 20 more? They come in, you give them a check or you give them money. So it's different for each case. There's so many artists and labels, you just never get in touch, ever. They bring you in 10 or 20 CDs and you never see them again.
So what happens? You just have a little book which says...
We have a big book. We have a very big book. We have a very big stockroom full of stuff that you go back and you find all these bands. Oh yeah, they made it. Oh yeah, look at that. Here's a Las Vegas single from 2007. But so many people just don't get in touch because it comes down to follow-up. The big elephant in the room with independent labels is the lack of follow-up. So people, I don't know, if they're shy, scared, whatever, naive, they give you stuff or they give a media outlet stuff and they don't follow it up. They don't come in person to check how it's going. They don't phone you up. They don't send you an email. 7 out of 10 releases are never followed up.
Has this been your experience, Darren?
Yeah, I'd agree with that. A lot of people just bring the records in and then you never see them again. So they don't even know if the records are still on your shelf or not, or if you've had them for over a year and you've decided that we don't need this anymore. I mean, it's making our stock look old. And so we just put them under the counter and hope that they come back. I mean, in some ways we'd be embarrassed to get in touch and say, look, can you come back and pick up your 2 singles that you left with us?
It's an awkward situation because you take them off sale because they've been there for so long. We've got a huge basement because it is full of all this stock.
And do you know where it all is?
Well, it's all in A to Z, it's all nicely filed, but people never come back. They just don't come back. And then we don't want to throw it away just in case they do come back.
And if they do come back, it's like at 1 o'clock on a Friday afternoon when you're serving a line of people and they said, I brought you in a CD 4 years ago. Can you check to see how it's doing? It's like, oh, yeah. No.
Please phone up first and say that you're coming in and then, at least we can get the stock ready.
Now, is it reasonable though if it's, you've got something current, you've brought it in the past few months, how quickly should they expect you to be able to tell them how many you've sold?
Yeah, well, if it's selling, then we'll be back in touch with them pretty quickly just to get more stock. If it's not selling, then we don't usually get in touch with them. Then we will wait for the artist to just.
But if they get in touch with you, should they expect a response the next day, or is it reasonable for them to have to call you a few more times?
We'd get back to them either the same day or the day after.
A proper label will just send you an email, just saying how's it doing, and that gives you the chance to go check on how it's done and get back to them. And the good Scottish labels, the ones that are doing well, do that, and they come around the shop once a week or once every few weeks. Like Paul from Comets will come around, or Lloyd from Olive Grove will come around once a week. And if it's an album and it's getting lots of press, whether it's a Wooden Box album or a Joe Mango album, that you're constantly ordering. We were paying Joe Mango pretty much every week there for a while, and same as Wooden Box and things. We're just giving them constantly rotating stock.
So they just come in and you go, right, I've sold 20, here's the cash.
Yeah. Or you sell, say, the Wooden Box, I've just sold 100 at £6 a pop, like there's 600 quid, thank you very much.
Is this how you work as well?
We were not selling anywhere near that volume.
But so you give them a check for like £5 or something?
Yeah. I mean, often they'll take something off the shelf. They'll actually buy something. So I mean, if we've just sold it for cost price and they come in and use that as credit against something that we do have a good margin on, we think that's a good way to work. And of course, if their friends or family come in and shop with us because we are friendly to the bands and we stock their stuff, then we think we can't really lose that way. We're not selling as many as Sandy or Rose.
How much does it vary in terms of getting paid, Vicki? I mean, what's the longest you've had to wait for getting paid for something your shop's stocked?
I mean, to be honest, we haven't had stock available for that long. We've only existed for 2 years, and we've maybe only been chasing all the shops we actually distribute to for about a year. So it's really just a case of Paul chasing it up as often as he possibly can. He usually has a reasonably good idea of how a band's doing just because he keeps in contact with the people he's passed the record on to. And I get the impression Paul's just the kind of guy that emails people regularly anyway, and he just follows them up to see how the stock's doing.
Yeah, I think it's important to follow up emails though, because a record shop gets bombarded with emails from the distribution companies. Often, 4 or 5 from the same distribution company per day. We're now getting 40 emails a day that we're having to go through, try to look at, and often just delete. So, if we don't check our email on a daily basis, then within a few days, your email could be on page 4, and it might not get noticed or picked up very quickly.
I remember, just last year with Johnny from Finch, Johnny Boss Map now came around and said they hadn't been paid by Rough Trade in London for 2.5 years. But they're still giving him stuff because they wanted it to be on sale in Rough Trade. 2.5 years.
Wow.
Have they been paid yet?
I don't know very much. I don't know.
But I think it's an interesting point then. It's a bit like the other side of what we were talking about earlier on with the Arcade Fire scenario. And it's like, well, at which point do you draw the line? And would you carry on supplying Rough Trade if they had paid you for 2.5 years just for the privilege of being in their shop?
I don't know, it's a difficult one, isn't it? Because I think as a teenager I really idolised that place, and I remember going there for the first time and just being absolutely astounded by it. And I went down and did a placement at Domino Records a couple of years ago, and one of the guys from there took me in there, and it was just a really, really great experience. It's a fantastic shop, but I suppose at the same time, if you're operating as a business, you've probably got to operate with your business head on and not support people who aren't treating you in the way you should be treated.
Now, I've got one thing here that's an enormous rant, but it's preceded by a question, so I'll focus on the question because the rant doesn't have a question mark. Now, would any of you stock dance or electronic music 12 inches?
No. We don't have a client base that is into that, and the 12 inches themselves, even classic rock 12 inches, don't sell. At least in our shop. Certainly dance music. If it's outside of Chemical Brothers, Fatboy Slim, that kind of thing, getting into the white label promos and things is not something I know much about, and it's not music I'm particularly into myself. So yeah, because we don't know it, we wouldn't stock it.
Sandy, do you stock any?
Yeah, we do actually. Yeah, as many as we possibly can. Certainly local stuff, and we also do Mungo's Hi-Fi, the Glasgow reggae sound system. We sell shitloads of that, CDs and vinyl of Mungo's, and the Optimo stuff goes through distribution, so we get that as well. And there's not that many Scottish dance labels, is so anybody out here, yes, please, we'll sell your product.
You do the odd sort of remixy thing like Dolphin Boy and stuff, don't you?
Well, that's on CD, but I mean, we would try 12-inch dance singles if we thought they would sell. Yeah. Underground Solution.
Yeah, I was going to say Underground Solution is your best bet in Edinburgh by far, because that's there. And the last time we did one of these panels was about 5 years ago or something like that, and certainly they're amenable to taking stuff as well. So go and see George in Underground Solution. He DJs in Sneaky Pete's as well. He's an amazing DJ. So if he's too busy in the shop, go and collar him at Sneaky Pete's. I mean, I remember Fopp in Coburn Street having this amazing vinyl section downstairs, and this really quite stern-looking woman that was a bit frightening. But once you got past that, she was amazing. You could go in and sing a few bars of something that you'd heard, at 2 a.m, and she would know what you were talking about, and she'd be like, yeah,
I know who you're talking about.
That's deleted, but it's probably going to be reissued in the next few months, and it was. Are you doing electronic music in 12 inches again now? I mean, with the vinyl in the shops?
We've got a pretty decent vinyl section now compared to what it was a couple of years ago, even compared to last year. We don't have enough space for all the stock we'd like to get our hands on. We do see the odd 12 dropping through, but we don't have the space to do it justice. So, Underground Solution, that's the place to go if you want to get some 12s.
Glasgow's Rubber Dub? Anywhere else in Glasgow, or?
Not that I'm aware of, but Rubber Dub do distribution as well, so they're plugged into an entirely different scene. One of my pals has a techno project called Kodiak, and his last one did 5,000, and his current one, Rubber Dub, just wouldn't even press physical at all. So it's just like it's done 1,000 downloads. But they're not interested unless you can do 2,000.
Yeah, well, the other thing is with electronic music on the download front is Beatport, but we don't want to go into that. We're talking about physical tonight. Are you seeing any particular trends in your shops that be useful for people to be aware of? You've opened a vinyl section. I mean, I guess that's a trend, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I was thinking about trends yesterday evening when I saw the questions there, and I honestly have not seen any particular trends. We're still selling similar CDs to we were the year before, the same type of bands. The vinyl room is an odd... You've been in our vinyl room. It's an odd mix. We stock things that we like,
What made you open a vinyl room?
Because we like it. It's...
One of the trends that we've noticed is a negative one, that people have stopped buying back catalogue. Albums that we would, classic albums that you'd sell for $5 and you'd sell shitloads of every month have just dwindled right down.
Do you think that's because of the streaming services?
Yeah, it's probably incremental with a whole bunch of stuff and people's time being more precious and things like that. Everyone's so busy. So That's a negative trend.
Do you mean very old albums, or
Well,
5 years old? Or?
well, I know more classic kind of 70s, 60s and 70s things. Like we used to sell every Joni Mitchell album like once a week, just one at a time, once a week. Now you don't.
Yeah.
Or all the old Sonic Youth albums, you'd sell, the good ones once a week and the other ones once a month. And now they just all sit there because people don't want to spend a $5 on Daydream Nation or on the Velvet Underground Banana album. Because I don't know if they could stream it or YouTube or whatever the hell they want to do with it. They'll happily spend 15 quid on a vinyl version of it, but they're not going to pay a $5 for a good CD of it. But things have been devalued. We're banging out secondhand CDs at $2.99 now. It was $3.99 and $4.99 for years and years and years. But now you can get classic albums for 3 quid.
Is that just happened in the past year?
Yeah, really has. I've really noticed that the people are just not buying the back catalogue as much this year as they did last year. I just had to stop stocking it because we're paying the record companies like $3.50 for a CD and selling it for a $5. So you're making 30p on a $3.50 purchase, which is shit. It's a shit business model. If I could, for £3 I could buy 3 second-hand vinyl albums and sell them for a tenner kind of thing, and make a tenner on my £3. Buy it from the record company, I can make 30p for my £3. Shit business model.
Yeah, we totally...
How's your business model?
Pretty good. I mean, we're a second-hand record specialist. My partner in the shop, George, has been doing record fairs in Edinburgh and beyond for over 25 years. So there's good margin in second-hand records. And the trend that we've seen is that people are after original pressings of Stones albums, Beatles albums, Pink Floyd, The Who. We just can't get enough of them now. There's been a net export of these albums in containers to Chile and to Russia over a period of many years. And now with the vinyl resurgence, it means that these records just aren't available in the UK anymore, and the prices are really going up. And it's just hard to get hold of good second-hand vinyl, which is really where the repressings of classic albums on record are really important. So it means that although we find it harder to get original impressions of Stones albums, but now we can top up from Universal. We can top up all the early Stones albums, and make sure that our racks are full of things that people expect a record shop to have.
Universal just make it up as they go along. The prices, like the Arcade Fire 12-inch, they wanted to charge us £10 each for the 12-inch wholesale. So that's 16. We ended up selling the Arcade Fire 12-inch for $16.99. That's nuts. We did it. We had to, but we didn't choose the price to sell it at. And they asked us to open at 9 o'clock that night on the 9th of the 9th.
Did you do it?
Well, when the first phone call came and said, will you open at 9 o'clock at night for the Arcade Fire 12-inch? And I says, yes, I will, if you make it worth my while. You can have 3 copies. And I just, like, come on, really, do the math. 3 copies, and you want me to hang around it till whatever time at night on a Monday night. So I just said, no, I want 100 copies. And it was like, oh my God, 100 copies. 3 phone calls later, you can have 50 copies. And the rep came around at 6 o'clock and took me for a curry to make sure I didn't open the shop early, to sell it early. And we had a queue of like 30 people to spend 70 quid on a 2-song 12-inch.
Man, I'd tell them to fuck off. Or sell more Quick Beam records. Have you noticed any? Trends? I mean, obviously you've suddenly stuck a bunch of vinyl, and as soon as that's what people see when they walk into your shop. Are there any other things that trend-wise, buying habits, or even the type of people that come into the shop?
Well, it is about the vinyl at the moment. That's the best performing year-on-year increase we have, and it's fantastic. And we get all ages buying it as well. You'll get some young lads that are maybe still in 5th or 6th year at school coming in and buying a couple of pieces of vinyl fairly regularly as well. And then at the weekend and through the week, you're getting hit by, I suppose, the just be called Mojo Man or 50 Quid Man, who's reconnecting with sometimes the records of his youth, but these guys buy Arcade Fire records as well. And so
how many Arcade Fire records did you get? Did they make you stay in the shop till 9 o'clock?
Sadly not.
Indie exclusive. They threw us a wee indie bone.
Okay. And you get a curry as well.
No, I had to pay for the curry.
Really?
Yes, I did.
Cheeky bastards,
70 quid for the 3 of us.
Do Universal really still have reps, though?
Yeah, they do. Tricky Dicky, his name is.
Is he still going?
Only 2 Scottish calls. Yeah, the Universal rep only has 2 Scottish accounts, myself and Apollo and Paisley. And that's all he does other than laptop export stuff.
I'm interested with this, with the type of people that come into the shops. You seem to get all ages. I mean, are you noticing a whole new generation coming in and buying music because you sell vinyl?
Yeah, well, since we opened and following the demographic that we get from Facebook, a third of our customers, well, we see them coming through the door. A third of our customers are female and between the ages 18 and 35 or so. We've actually sold Grateful Dead albums to 6-year-olds, and people are bringing in people bring in the younger kids, 10-year-old boys to buy their first record, seeing this as a special thing. So they're saying, "Oh, you need to buy Let It Be," or "You need to buy the Stones records. I want to make you a Stones kid." But yeah, it's nice to see that vinyl's connecting with young people. I think young people have realised that you can download songs for nothing, and people are actually just wanting a song on the computer, a song that you can listen to on the bus in your iPod, but actually to have something physical for your money. People aren't silly. They realise that the downloads are no value at all. You don't own anything.
You're just renting the downloads. You're renting your iTunes library. You don't own it. I have a theory, a pet theory, that this generation has been ripped off of the experience of playing records with their mates. A whole big, when I was a teenager, you get a big bunch of 7-inch singles, and you'd go around to your friend's house, and you'd all have a bag of singles, and you'd sit and you'd play, and you'd drink, and have a good chat, play records. I think this generation has been ripped off of that. Everyone's sitting at home alone, on Facebook, or listening to their iPod alone.
I think that's why the CD is dying, because it's just a mechanism of getting music from a shop onto your computer. And it's become less necessary. That's why a T-shirt with a download code or a mug with a download code is actually a more useful item. A CD will come and then sit on your shelf. Never played again after being put up on a computer. Whereas at least with a mug, you can have a nice Randall Sleep cup of coffee in the morning.
I quite like the fact that you've ended up being positioned as the kind of family shop. You get that with festivals and stuff as well. Do you find that your location makes a difference as well?
Yes. Well, Stockbridge it's away from the student part of town, which is more South Edinburgh. Stockbridge, if you don't know, it's really quite a middle class, traditionally bohemian, but quite boutique-y now in the type of shops that are there. Little jewellery shops, little gift shops, and there's our wee record shop. And we wanted to make it friendly to females, well, friendly to everyone, friendly to families, so buggies can come in, dogs can come in. We're on the dog.
Oh, no, another one, man. It's bad enough in the fucking local pubs around there. You're falling over greyhounds and stuff. Well, like, you got something trying to shag your leg and scran your crisps at the same time. Yeah, yeah, that's just the staff. Yeah.
But we just didn't want to be. We didn't want to be the traditional record shop that is quite intimidating to go into. Painted black and with a miserable guy behind the counter. We want to be nice and bright and cheery and welcome people in with open arms. And as I said, we've befriended many of our customers and a lot of the bands that come in. So we want to see them get a good deal. And it breaks my heart to sell. For a record store day, we talked about some of the singles would cost us over £7 to buy, and we're having to price them at £10. And really crying inside thing. I don't want to rip off the people that are buying these things. To sell LPs for £20, they're not worth £20. We actually struggle to sell some of the new pressings that are going out for £20. It's a strange time for the music industry just now, and it's interesting to be on the fringe and between the accountants at HMV and Amazon who are fighting a real kind of a ruthless battle between the two of them, and to be a wee shop just seeing all the important independent shops. And I suppose there's 11 independent record shops. If you count all the record shops, 12 actually if you include Fopp as a record shop in Edinburgh. So I think per head of population, we've actually got more than any other city on earth. We're actually very lucky. And just a point I wanted to make before is that if you are in bands and want to get your music out, there's more than just a handful of shops that will take your release. There's Elvis Shakespeare, Vinyl Villains will often take your release. Unknown Pleasures on the Royal Mile, ourselves, Coda, Avalanche might take it as long as there are certain conditions met. And there are other shops that are maybe perhaps less likely to take it, but I'm sure would like to be asked and involved, because I think the future for small record shops is to get involved in things like Record Store Day and to open accounts with the distributors to help fill the shelves where you can't get the second-hand Rolling Stones, to get the new Rolling Stones, and just to start engaging with the vinyl revival properly, and hopefully taking some of the local bands with them and give them some shelf space.
Rose, do you find that your customer base has remained pretty much the same, that kind of mixture of lost tourists and people that are hardcore? Well, I guess they're not your customers, but I mean, how many or what kind of percentage are tourists that come into your shop?
Oh gosh, tourists probably 60,
to buy stuff.
60-70%.
Wow. So more than half of the people buying things in your shop are
tourists. Yeah.
Tourists.
Yeah.
That's amazing. What about you, Sandy? I mean, do you get a lot of people coming in because of the various indie connections? And
it's actually gotten a lot better over the past year or so. We got a lot more tourists. Before, where we were, the kind of arse end of Queen Street Station, we didn't get that many. You could just get on the train to Edinburgh and go. But now, through a lot of kind of online social media things, like the BuzzFeed thing, we were in the 27 most breathtaking record shops you have to shop at before you die, and in GQ magazine, 10 best UK record shops, weird things like that people see online, and then they just become curious, they look around.
Do you get a lot of tourists in Fopp?
Well, yeah, we're a city centre location, and the tourist, it doesn't just mean the sort of traditional image of people that come over for the festival and that. You get day trippers up from England, you get people over from Ireland, people over from the continent, and they're always buzzing around looking for stuff. Sometimes they're looking for specifically Scottish stuff, which they'll ask us to recommend. And one of the things that we always do is, if we don't have something, like say someone's looking for something in the traditional end, we send them on a Coda. If we don't have something from, say, the indie side of things, we will send them down to Avalanche. And I know that through in Glasgow, I think the team in Glasgow send guys up to Love Music as well. We also have, or we used to have, these little cards that had a map of Edinburgh in the city centre. And we used to just draw little pictures of where all the shops were so that people could find all the places.
I mean, do you think that obviously with technology and with streaming, that by the sounds of it, especially with the back catalogue, that might be taking a bite out of your sales with that, but do you think there is a compensating factor that through all these different online services and tourism things, that is generating a lot of business for you on the other hand? Or have you always, just because of your location, had loads of people coming in, Rose?
I think it's because of our location as well, so we're easy to find. And lots of tourists come to our shop that have been sent to our shop from other types of shops in the high street, or tour guides as well.
How do independent labels distribute their music? So you don't have a distributor yet, but you do it yourselves?
No, we don't. Do you mean just on a physical level? Or
yeah, on a physical level.
It's literally just been a grassroots process. It's been a case of going online and trawling through directories of various shops that exist throughout the UK, and then calling them up and telling them, look, we've got this album, it's great. Can we send you a copy if you like it? Would you like to take some stock? I think it's very kind of important as well to assess the amount of stock you have as a whole for a release, and then figure out how you're actually going to distribute that to various stores. You don't want to send some shop in Brighton 60 copies when the band is quintessentially a local band and doesn't really have a following down there. You want to send them kind of 3 or 4 and maybe try and get them some gigs down there and generate a bit of buzz about the band, you know. But it has, for us, it's definitely been a grassroots process.
When someone's sending you vinyl, do you find that a lot of the time it's broken when it arrives?
Corners bashed. Not the vinyl, the corners, the covers. And Universal are the biggest offenders right now.
What do you do? Who pays for that?
You just phone up customer service and say it's damaged in transit. They type out a returns authorization, mail it to you, you send it back. So it's a really time-consuming process that you lose money on.
What about the rest of you?
We've been really surprised. I mean, we've only been doing vinyl for the past 6 months, and one of our fears was that, just from memories of 20 years ago, was that we were going to probably start having lots of 40s back. We've had 2 40 albums back in 6 months. I think the quality is fantastic. Luckily, we've not had any problems with deliveries with bashed covers either.
The Edinburgh truck driver is obviously more careful than the Glasgow guys.
Very careful. But no, the quality of vinyl is absolutely fantastic now.
Right, and here's this is kind of my last question, which hasn't really got to do with any business, but why are there not more women record shop owners?
Well, that made me smile just now when Darren said that they've tried to make the shop female friendly. I thought, have you got a sign outside saying females welcome here?
No, we're just a nice shade of blue. We just wanted to have a bright shop. It was actually accidental. We were going to call the shop Voxbox Art and Music. There was the gist of the shop. George was selling records from a stall, and next to him had a young artist called Kate George, who actually designed our shop logo. And the idea was to have her artwork and our records in the shop. So what he found is at the stall that the people looking at her art tend to be women, and the people at the stall tend to be guys. And then there was a point after about 10 minutes where they would swap. And so we thought this is something that could work. There's going to be crossover between the people that are buying her feminine artwork and the records that we were selling. So
we've got a chair in our vinyl room next to the record deck, and whenever you get a young couple going there, if you pop in a few minutes later, it's always exactly the same scenario. The guy's looking through the album racks and the girl's sat on the chair looking bored out the window. So we were thinking about changing the chair to like one of those directors' chairs and just have girlfriend written across the back.
Significant other. Indie record shops are very, very male-oriented, male-dominated. Like, women go to chain stores, women go to HMV. We've noticed when ladies come in the shop, they don't want to touch anything. Guys come in and they're through their records, they're touching things. Ladies come in, they just walk about, keep their hands in their pockets and just like, don't want to touch anything. That's not clean.
Right, now here's a question for you. I mean, I've just been recounting fondly someone that ran the vinyl section in Fopp in like 1991 or something. But do you have any women managers?
Yes, manageress Nottingham.
Okay. And do you think the women are more likely to work in chains than have their own shops?
Well, there were certainly quite a few female managers at Fopp when Fopp was an indie, which was many years ago, and they were all good managers. So it's not a male-dominated industry. There's a lot of guys, obviously, in positions, but if you're good enough, I'm sure you're right. And even in chain stores as well, like when I worked for Virgin, there's certainly some very strong female managers there that could have run their own shop.
Why? Do you know any women that own their own shop in Scotland?
No.
There's not really many young people that do shops. There's not many people under 40. It's mostly middle-aged.
It's quite young.
His partner's over 60, so we just did an average of the date. It's over 40. So no, look at it. It's middle-aged guys. Usually weird middle-aged guys too.
So, what better way to end this panel? Yeah, most record shops are run by weird middle-aged guys. So go and engage with them, and they'll sell lots of your records.